Have you ever wanted to travel to a faraway place? Maybe you've always wanted to, but you've never had the resources or the time. We are about to take you on an adventure to Italy. After exploring and researching the different aspects of Italian culture, we can transport your imagination to this intriguing country.
Today we'd like to teach you about a place that's full of life, culture, and beauty, Italy.
Some of the things that make Italy so wonderful are its history, its art, its religion, myths, and legends, and its food.
Italy has a rich and complex history. Its history extends over 3,000 years. According to an article published on Britannica.com by several different renowned professors, civilization in Italy began with the Etruscans. However, around 300 BCE, the power dynamic in Italy began to change when the Romans overtook the Etruscans, according to Britannica. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest and the most extensive empires in the civilized world. It expanded over several different continents. According to Britannica, its control reached from Scotland to India. Not only did the Romans have a large area of control, they also had a lengthy reign, according to Britannica. Their rule eventually ended around the 5th century CE. During the Middle Ages, the Roman Empire was eventually broken up by the Northern Barbarians, according to Britannica. Britannica further states that these barbarians were the Huns, the Lombards, the Ostrogoths, and the Franks, and many others. This time period was filled with conflict and strife, and it lasted for several different centuries. The large empire that the Romans once were broken up into several different city-states, according to Britannica. After this long and strenuous period, the Italians eventually became empowered by the Renaissance. The prime of the Renaissance was in the 14th and 15th centuries, according to Britannica. Britannica further states that the Renaissance was considered the rebirth of ancient Greek and Roman ideas and arts. Many famous artists came out of this time period, and many of those artists were Italian. And you'll find out more about Italian Renaissance art later on in this speech. Not only did the Renaissance bring about new art, it also brought about new ideas and philosophies. The Renaissance didn't just include Italy, but it also spread to the rest of the world. In 1861, Italy was finally unified under King Victor Emmanuel II, according to an article published by BBC, which details a timeline of the modern history of Italy. This unification led to the modern era of Italian history. In the 1900s, Italy participated in both world wars. In 1915, Italy aligned with the Allies in World War I. Their side eventually won, according to BBC. However, the outcome was different for World War II. In 1922, Benito Mussolini came to power in Italy. He then established a fascist government, as further stated by BBC, and he also aligned with Adolf Hitler, who was the fascist leader of Nazi Germany. In 1940, BBC states that Italy entered World War II. However, they eventually lost and Mussolini was executed. Today, Italy is a part of the European Union. It has flourished with an increase in tourism, according to Britannica.com. The rich and intense history of Italy has influenced many aspects of Italian culture. Next, Alexi will be telling you about one of those aspects of Italian culture.
Now I'm going to talk about art in Italy. Italy is known as the birthplace of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a transition from the Middle Ages to modernity. According to History.com, the Renaissance was the rediscovery of art, and some of its famous innovators came from Italy as well. In the 6th edition of the Columbia Encyclopedia, Some of his famous paintings were done in frescoes, such as The Last Judgment by Michelangelo. Michelangelo's painting was done in the Sistine Chapel of the Vatican. The Renaissance also influenced visions such as Futurism. Futurism is all about change and embracing new technology and discarding insignificant art. Italy is not only famous for its paintings, it is also known for its high fashion. According to Britannica, Italy runs and influences the high fashion industry. As high fashion is known for its aesthetics, it also has a deeper meaning to it. According to Alyssa de Cruz, she described that Giorgio Armani became the face of gender equality in the late 1970s in her article Made in Italy, High Fashion from 1950 to now. As high fashion is prized for its aesthetics, Italian architecture is adored as well. Just Italy, a travel guide website, described its various styles in architecture, such as classical, early medieval, Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque. In the classical era, people invented concrete, which would influence today's architecture as much as the wheel. In the early medieval ages, they used round arches for their buildings, and in today's world, we use round arches to support bridges. Transitioning to the Gothic era, they used gargoyles and bigger windows and pointed arches to spruce up their buildings. In the Renaissance era, architects used domes, pillars, and frescoes, and they discarded some of the old architectural styles in the medieval times. Lastly is the Baroque style, which is mainly used for churches and popes. Can you see here? And aside from aesthetics, entertainment is also a part of Italy's culture. Film was most popular in the 1950s, and neorealism was best represented in a film that was about post-war Italy. At the time, Prime Minister Mussolini built a film studio in Rome, which would make Rome into an international jet set, or the Hollywood of Europe. Then in the late 20th century, Italy's film culture started to decline, and its films were becoming less unsuccessful. Today, they are still unsuccessful, and they are still producing hundreds of movies today. Now, Jordan will present another aspect of Italy's culture.
Now we'll discuss the religions of Italy. Catholicism has played an enormous role in Italy's history. It is still the largest faith in the country. Most Italians that are Christians are Catholic. 96% of the Christians in Italy were baptized as Catholic. When you think about Italy and religion, you might think about Rome, because that is where the Vatican City is and is the headquarters for over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. This is a picture of the inside of the Vatican City, and the inside of the Vatican, which is located at the Vatican City. The leader of the Catholic Church is the Pope. He lives in the Vatican City. The World Pope means father in Greek. He is also known as the Supreme Pontiff. Pope Francis is the current Pope. He was elected in March of 2013. And this is also a picture of Pope Francis, the current Pope. The second most practiced religion in Italy is Islam. The Islam faith is said to have been brought to Italy when the Abbasid Caliphate took control of Sicily in the 9th century. The Norman conquest has also influenced many people to convert to be Muslims. And this is a picture of people, the Muslims praying to their gods outside in a public mosque, it looks like. Anna Momiglano of the Washington Post says at least 1.4 million Muslims are living in Italy, making Islam the country's de facto second largest religion. But as far as Italian authorities are concerned, Islam does not exist. And this is a picture of one of the biggest mosques in Italy. There are now over 500 mosques, but since Italy does not acknowledge Islam as a faith, mosques do not receive public funding. There's no legal values to Islamic weddings either. Muslims do not receive benefits for religious holidays, and people from Somalia started migrating to Italy in the 20th century. This is causing Islamic faith to grow quickly. Other religions of Italy are Judaism and other religions of the Jewish faith. There are more than 40,000 Jewish Italian citizens of Italy. According to the History Channel, about 2,000 years ago, a small group of Jews settled in Rome and later moved to the southern part of Italy. This is a picture of the Jewish immigrants that probably started moving to Italy and their living situations. Jewish people are believed to be the first people to lend money and charge interest. Since they settled in the southern tip of the country, they had an influence of trade in the industry by controlling money. The Italian people money, that is. This was a way to spread their faith. Other denominations in Italy are Orthodox, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants, such as Methodists, Baptists, and Presbyterians. Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism are also found in Italy. Hinduism is the fastest growing religion in Italy. Some Hindus face abuse in Italy. Daniela Sala says they're expected to work for far less than minimum wage. The largest Buddhist temple in Europe is in Rome, and it opened in 2013. Buddhism is the third most spread religion in Italy. This is a chart showing the different religions in Italy, and as you see, the Roman Catholic religion dominates any other religions. Here's people that practice the Roman Catholic religion, and then you have non-religious people, and your atheists, that's 14%, and your Muslims 2%, and the other religions, 1%. And along with its history, arts, and religion, Italy also has some pretty interesting myths and legends. Grace will now tell us about these myths and legends.
Italy is a very interesting country that has very interesting myths and legends. Stephanie Sadler is a General Education Network CPA World blogger, and in his blog he tells the personal experience of his travels to Italy. And he pretty much tells the myths that everybody rumors about Italy. One myth is that pizza is served in Italy, which it is not. It's only served maybe one place in Italy. Another myth is that Alfredo sauce and fettuccine Alfredo are a common dish in Italian restaurants. That is a myth too, because Alfredo sauce is not even served in Italy restaurants at all. The third myth is that English is Italy's second language, and Stephanie Sadler found this out the hard way. He interviewed people before traveling, and he found out that it was, and when he went to Italy, he noticed that it wasn't because he wasn't able to find information out from the locals so he couldn't understand them. Italy also has some interesting legends that we commonly know, or we should. The first legend I like to talk about is Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus are twin brothers, and from an article I read by Brittany Garcia, Ancient History Encyclopedia, they are the discoverers of Rome. Their story started off as their mother becoming a virgin by the king Romulus of Avalonga. After birth, she was sentenced to imprisonment and the children were sentenced to death. And while they were sentenced to death, their servant felt pity for them and sent them down the Tiber River. And there they found a she-wolf who took care of them and nourished them. After that, a shepherd and his wife took them in, and then as they grew up, they eventually went back and got in a fight with the King Romulus servants, and ended up being Remus got captured, and then Romulus went to kill the king, and that's how they ventured out to find Rome of Italy. The second legend I want to talk about is La Befana. She is a witch. She flies around on her broomstick and delivers presents to good children and coal to bad children. This is commonly known as Santa Claus in our legend, but this only happens on Epiphany Eve, where it happens Christmas Eve in ours. The third legend I would like to talk about is Laurisoro. Is a pretty much like the Loch Ness Monster in our legends, but it is a reptile creature that has reptile feet and a crocodile head. And Italy magazine says that this creature has been sighted at Lake Como since 1949. The last legend I'll talk about is Malahio. From the genealogy website, it says that Italy's people are still believing this today, and they commonly known it as the evil eye. This legend is more of like an unlucky thing that happens when you start to brag about something, and to prevent it, they wear horn amulets to avoid being unlucky. And we commonly know this as, we use a phrase called knock on wood to prevent bad luck on us.
In conclusion, Italy is known for its history, arts, religion, myths and legends, and foods. Without these aspects of culture in Italy, Italy would not be as wonderful as it is today.
I hope everyone enjoyed listening about the amazing culture, life, and beauty of Italy. Thank you for watching.